Welcome back to M-Files Process Maps. In this session we will give you an overview of the different classes that can be used to create your process maps. You will learn more about the standard methodologies and how to use the available elements depending on the methodology you choose. The first traditional flowcharting was introduced at the beginning of the last century and is a popular tool for describing computer algorithms since 1970. Today, the flowchart methodology is standardized by ANSI and ISO. It provides a notation for documenting simple algorithms and programs. In M-Files process maps, you can find elements and shapes in three typical categories: process shapes, flow operators, data input or output elements, as well as horizontal and vertical lanes. The event-driven process chain called EPC is a special flowchart that was developed within the framework of ARIS, the Architecture of Integrated Information Systems, by IDS Shear and SAP. The EPC is an ordered graph of events and functions that can be used to configure enterprise resource planning execution or for the optimization of business processes. It ensures that all parts of a process are visualized so that business owners can point out duplications or inefficiencies in their tasks or inputs. Different shapes represent the elements of an EPC diagram. Events are passive elements that describe under what circumstances a function or process occurs or which state a function or process results in. In the EPC graph, an event is represented as a hexagon. In general, an EPC diagram must start with an event and end with an event. Functions are active elements in an EPC. They model the tasks or activities within the company. A function is represented as a rounded rectangle. Interfaces serve as connection elements to human or machine interaction, or to subprocesses on another process map. Process owners or organizational units are responsible for a function. Information, material, or resource objects portray elements of the real world, for example, IT systems, guidelines, checklists, databases, etc. Information objects can both serve as input and as output to functions. The logical relationships between elements in the control flow are described by logical connectors. The business process model and notation, called BPMN collaboration diagram, is a graphical representation for specifying business processes in business process diagrams. BPMN is based on the flowchart methodology and provides a complex notation which is understandable by all business stakeholders. For the BPMN collaboration methodology, you will find shapes for different tasks, events, or gateways with markers that represent the type of activity. The connecting lines and objects can have different properties to symbolize the sequence or message flow. Swim lanes or pools symbolize responsibilities in the business process. You can also use artifacts like data objects, groups, or annotations to bring more information into the diagram. The portfolio methodology uses chevron diagrams to represent steps or actions within a process or a value chain from a broader perspective. Linear arrows, so-called chevrons, are used to emphasize the direction of movement and show the stages in a more understandable and vivid manner. Management, operational, and supporting processes are represented by different symbols that you can use to indicate a development timeline or workflow. Process owners or organizational units are responsible for a step in the process, like in EPC diagrams. Risk and control shapes can be used to link objects with checks and balances to monitor the portfolio process. Workflow maps are process maps which you can use to replicate the M-Files internal workflows in the design interface of process maps. They enable you to visualize the dynamic processes of M-Files objects and give your user additional information about the individual process steps. It even lets you change the status of an object directly within a map. It is possible to present complex processes directly in the M-Files client interface, thus supporting your specialist departments in the execution and adaptation of their business processes. The workflow map specific symbols that can be found in the library represent the workflow states available in the related M-Files workflow and will adapt dynamically to changes made in M-Files admin. When these workflow states are added to the canvas, the connectors are also dynamically applied. The workflow state viewports function as overlays for images of existing workflow diagrams or process maps. You can export an image of the workflow map in mFiles admin, for example, and place the viewports of the workflow states on top to speed up the modeling process. If you want to automatically generate the links between states when using viewports, you have to hold the Control key while dragging the viewports from the library to the canvas. The symbols of all the other notations are also available when creating workflow maps, to allow the use of all kinds of existing process maps as workflow maps, and so you can model the workflow process in an alternative notation in the same map.